self-realization. Before we begin, let us offer our prayers to Lord Krishna and Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarini Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Shri Radha Vrindavan Chandrodaya Mandir, Shri Nitai Gauranga ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So welcome everyone for the Sunday morning Science of Self-Realization session. So we'll be discussing on a very interesting topic today, continuation of what we started last week about the saintly compassion of a Vaishnava. Okay? We are discussing from a book known as The Science of Self-Realization. There's a book wherein there's the compilation of different articles, essays, conversations, letters by Srila Prabhupada. It's very nicely arranged in this book, wherein you get a first-hand experience of the introduction of spiritual life, specifically about the introduction about Bhagavad Gita and Vedic scriptures. So we'll continue our discussions with what we left last week. Okay. So it is a topic, a devotee always feels compassion. So part 2, right? So our inspiration and guidance is coming from Srila Prabhupada, because for doing anything, we need to have inspiration. In the outside world, people are inspired by their own drives for enjoying the senses. Whereas in spiritual life, inspiration comes from the spiritual master. Our bona fide spiritual master Prabhupada has been inspiring us through his guidance and instructions constantly. So let us offer our respectful obeisances to him. Just to recap quickly what we discussed in our previous session. In part 1 of this topic, we discussed from the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, a discussion between Shukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj was mentioned. The Bhagavata is the literature which is actually a very vast literature. It's considered to be the essence of all Vedic literatures. And this Bhagavatam is considered to be the mature fruit of the entire Vedic wisdom. This Bhagavatam has 12 parts called cantos. So in the 6th part, 6th canto, there's a description of how by chanting the holy names, one can be delivered from this material world. And specifically, the discussion begins between Srila Shukadeva Goswami, who is the speaker, and Parikshit Maharaj, who is the audience. And the discussion begins by Parikshit Maharaj asking about what so far he heard from Shukadeva Goswami and what he wants to hear further. So Parikshit Maharaj was telling that Shukadeva Goswami, you are described about various hellish planets, wherein there are so many living entities who are all suffering there. So what is the way out for them, or what is the way of deliverance for them, was a specific question. Herein we see Parikshit Maharaj, being a pure devotee, is concerned about the deliverance of many suffering people in the hell. So this was the discussion point which was asked by Parikshit Maharaj to Sukadeva Goswami. And in this course of discussion, a description of hell and heaven was all was discussed, because generally people think that hell and heaven may be imaginary. No, they're all facts. They're all different planetary systems meant for the based on the various activities we do, we are awarded different destinations, right? And in fact, Lord Krishna gives us information that if you perform bhakti, devotional service, neither you'll go to heaven or hell, you will go to Krishna Loka. Madhama Paramam Mama, Krishna says. The supreme planet of Krishna Loka, which is beyond this hell and heaven. We're going to go there. So we are supposed to become eligible to go to Krishna Loka, Vaikuntha. So instead of suffering and going on rotating sometimes in heaven, sometimes in hell, which is actually very much part of this material world, we are supposed to liberate ourselves. It is called actual liberation. So the description of hell and heaven in between, we also understood. And also, Parikshit Maharaj as a Vaishnava, his compassion for suffering of all the people was expressed. Again, we'll see some more points on this. And in the course of discussion, Prabhupada explained about how we as living entities have been wandering throughout this universe, especially Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Lord Krishna's specific incarnation for this Kali Yuga. He explains that Brahmanda Brahmite, we are all doing Brahmanda Brahmana, means we are rotating in this material universe. Sometimes as Devatas, sometimes as animals, sometimes as human beings, sometimes in different species of life. 84 lakh species of life are there. So we have been rotating in different species of life constantly, taking millions of lives through your journey of life. So like this, Brahmanda Brahmana is happening. It's like even in our normal experience, we can see somebody wants to go to Europe, somebody wants to go to Australia. From here, there, I want to travel. I met one person, he was saying, I have traveled to 145 countries. I have got 20 passports stamped. He was feeling very proud of it. So I was just thinking, okay, in this life only you have traveled so many countries. Previous life, so many lives you had. What all planets you would have gone, what all universes you would have gone. So like this, a tendency to wander is always there in a living entity, right? So this aspect of wandering here and there will go on unless you get a proper shelter at the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. So this aspect of wandering was explained by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Prabhupada very nicely explained this like this: 84 lakh species we are wandering in this whole material world. And further, Prabhupada nicely mentioned about Prahlad Maharaj, who is one more very great Vaishnava, great devotee, how he's expressing compassion for all of us. Prabhupada was quoting one nice prayer of Prahlad Maharaj, wherein he was offering to Lord Narasimha and mentioning, "Oh Lord Narasimha, I have no problem for myself. Naivod Vijay Paraduratya Vaitaranya Tadvirya Gayana Mahamrita Magna Chitta." I have no problem for myself because I am always absorbed in thinking about you. Mahamrita Magna Chitta. My chitta is always absorbed in thinking of you. I am only worried about those conditioned souls who have forgotten you, who have become Vimukha Chetasa, Shoche Tato Vimukha Chetasa Indriyartha. They have become completely averse to you, and and then they are absorbed in sense gratification. I am worried about those living entities, and they're engaged in Maya Sukhaya. What is Maya Sukha, and how the living entities in the material world are engaged in Maya Sukha, and how it is entangling them, we'll try to understand in today's session. Right? This is what Prabhupada explains further. I will proceed with our presentation further. So what is Maya Sukha or Maya Sukhaya? Further Prabhupada explains with nice examples. 2 examples Prabhupada gives. He says, Prabhupada is delivering this lecture, this talk in America. He's telling, in your country, America, you have the greatest number of cars, but that does not solve any problems. Nowadays, in every country and every big city, we have so many cars going up and down. So many cars are going up and down. Does it mean that, we have solved your problems? Prabhupada says, no. You have manufactured cars to help solve the problems of life. But I have experienced that this also creates more problems. You have invented something, you have created something, you have manufactured something to solve problem. But Prabhupada says by his personal example that I have experienced that this also creates more problems. How it is so, Prabhupada says, when my disciple Dayananda wanted to take me to a doctor in Los Angeles, I had to take the trouble to travel 30 miles before I could even consult the doctor. Nowadays, to go to any place or reach out to anybody, you have to travel such long distances. Right? Now we know in Delhi, NCR, there are people who stay in Gurgaon but work in Noida, or people who stay in Noida and work in Gurgaon, like that. So each of them is at least 40-50 kilometers distance. It is the modern trend, right? And there are many people who go up and down from Delhi to Mathura, Delhi to so many, at least 100 kilometers away, every day traveling 3 hours up, 3 hours down. So this has become the trend. So Prabhupada is giving his personal example how even to go to a doctor, I would travel 30 miles. And once you create cars, then you must travel 30 or 40 miles to meet your friends. Right? With any automobile or any vehicle you manufacture, you need to have proper roads for them to commute. Then you have to have fuel to see that the vehicle runs. And you need to have a proper traffic system to see that they are managed. And all for your comfort of having a vehicle to travel comfortably. And this is the point. So, with one comfort, you're creating so many discomforts. This is the point which Prabhupada is making. This is one example of Maya Sukha. Right? You're thinking I'm enjoying, but in the name of enjoyment, you're also getting entangled. So further, Prabhupada gives one more wonderful example. Prabhupada again, because he's talking in America, he's giving practical examples. You can fly from New York to Boston in 1 hour. But it takes even longer than just to get to the airport. This has been our practical example here also, right? People, maybe the air travel is very less, but to reach to the airport and get into the flight, that takes double the time or 3 times time. And this has been experienced with anybody. The Prabhupada says, it may be 1 hour distance only in the air between one destination and other destination. But to reach to airport, get into the flight, that is taking more time. This situation is called Maya Sukhaya. Right? Very nice example, practical example. So like this, we have created so many Maya Sukhaya. Maya means false, illusory. We are trying to create some very comfortable situation, but we have created another uncomfortable situation. Right? In the name of creating a comfortable situation, we have created another uncomfortable situation. This is the way of the material world. If we are not satisfied with the natural comforts offered by God and nature, and we want to create artificial comforts, then we have to create some discomfort also. Right? This is the laws of nature. So we cannot say that, we'll only have comforts every time and every time everything will be very perfect. I can manipulate nature, I can do that, I can do this. No. With every invention, with every manufacture, there will be so many other discomforts. Exactly what Prahlad Maharaj in one more prayer he says. Solving one problem, you have created 10 more problems. This is the way the material world is. It's called, and that way we think, okay, we have solved one problem, but we don't see from that 10 more problems have started. Right? So like this, with vehicles, with cars, invention, and we know how in Delhi NCR, with so many cars moving around, government has just created one more problem of pollution, air pollution. Air pollution has become so intense that the government has to take a policy of odd even cars being moving on some specific dates. Which is the one more problem like this. The government is trying to find out some alternative source of fuel so that the vehicles or cars which are moving around, they don't use the fuels like diesel or petrol. And we are seeing every day the petrol, diesel rates are increasing. So many things, complicated things. And to manage the fuel, there's the petroleum ministry, oil ministry, right? Like that, so many, ways things are all situated in the material world. It's not easy. So most people do not know that. They think that they are creating a very comfortable situation. But actually, they are traveling 50 miles to go to the office to earn a livelihood and 50 miles to come back. This is what is happening with all of us. We're traveling extensively and we think, oh, I'm going to earn a lot of money. I'm going to, I'm going to enjoy life like anything. But what are you doing every day? You're traveling up and down for long distances. We see in Delhi, at least, the metros are always full, at least during the peak times, morning times, the evening times, it is overcrowded, even though the government is opening new lines, metro lines. But every time it is filled. I heard from one of the officials, maybe some time back, at least around 25 lakh people travel in metro every day. Just imagine. And if the metro was not there, if everybody was commuting on the roads would have been even more congested. Just imagine. So like this, people are all extensively moving here, there, for different reasons. So because of these conditions, Prahlad Maharaj says that these vimudhas, vimudha means special fools, these materialistic persons, Prabhupada says these rascals, they have created an unnecessary burden on themselves simply for temporary happiness. Finally, if you analyze what for I am working like this, why I am struggling so hard, why can't I be satisfied with with whatever available nearby? Because people think, oh, if I go and work 50 kilometers away, my salary will be almost 1.5 times. But no, if he starts thinking and carefully analyzing, for that I have to spend so much of time, energy, right? So much of efforts I have to put. All that they will not consider. Oh, I'm only getting more salary, more money, more comforts. Let me travel. And it has become very common nowadays. You see in the houses or in many examples, how husband is working somewhere, wife is working somewhere, children are somewhere, all scattered families. This is the modern day Kali Yuga situation. Family is not together at all. Right? Children have gone to study abroad and they got settled there. So both husband and wife are alone. So like this, we see situations wherein they think, oh, this is going to be more comfortable for us. This is the situation of Kali Yuga. And Bhagavatam predicts all these things. This is going to be the situation. And the people's faces, we can see that actually they are not happy. But externally, they make a show of happiness. This is the present day situation. Right? So, everybody is unhappy within the heart because the near and dear ones, the relatives are all far away. For what? For earning money. I want to enjoy life. At what cost? I know at least recently I visited Chandigarh, a family wherein the daughter is away to one more foreign country and husband and wife are alone. So all is like, everybody thinks, this going out, going away, earning more money, this is what is life. So people are not following the principle of Bhagavad Gita. Yadricha labha santushta means whatever Lord has given, let us be happy and satisfied and not over endeavor for something. Why we have to go far away, distant places, for unnecessarily, earning, gaining something is the point. It's like this. Everybody's life is, very much scattered in a present day. It's what Prahlad Maharaj says. We are all vimudhas, materialistic people. Vimudhan maya sukhaya bharamudbhato. So therefore, in Vedic civilization, it is recommended that one free himself from material life, take sannyas, the renounced order of life, and prosecute spiritual life with absolutely no anxiety. So Prahlad Maharaj recommends simply botheration, this material life like this, right? For Maya Sukha, you have to work so hard, go here, go there, maintain your family, maintain community, maintain society. It is simply going to entangle you so much. So better you renounce everything, lead a spiritual life. But if you say this to the modern society, they will say, oh, what about myself and my family? How will they be taken care? How can we have these things practically applied in our present day life? Is a question. So for which Prabhupada gives us very practical examples. In the in the next slide we'll see how to execute Krishna consciousness or Bhakti Yoga in present life. How to execute spiritual life in the present situation. So we have examples of one great Acharya by name Bhaktivedanta Thakura, who is our Acharya in the Parampara. He says, if one can execute Krishna consciousness in family life, that is very good. Bhaktivedanta Thakur was a family man, a magistrate, and still he executed devotional service so nicely. It's a very classic example of how this Acharya, even though he was a magistrate, district magistrate of Puri, Jagannath Puri, was having a very responsible position. He was a family man, with children, and still he was so meticulous in his whole schedule throughout the day that he's very exemplary. We can follow his footsteps. Right? This is one example. And we also have examples from the history of Dhruva Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj. They were all grahasthas, householders. But they trained themselves in such a way that even as householders, they were faced with no interruption in their service. All these examples are described in the Bhagavatam very nicely. So we have to go through those details and see how nicely as kings, they were executing their duties so nicely. And also they were performing devotional service in their personal lives. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj says, I have learned the art of always remaining in Krishna consciousness. So in the discussion what we are having just now, Prahlada says that I know how to be absorbed in devotional service always, spiritual life always. I am only worried about these other people. So what is his worry? What is that art and how is he performing bhakti? Tadvirya gayana mahamrita magna chittaha. Simply glorifying the victorious activities and pastimes of the Lord. Virya means very heroic. Right? So Prahlad Maharaj has learned. See, all these great examples, we should follow in their footsteps, in their very, very, very ideal examples there. Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says that these great personalities, whatever actions they do, we should simply try to follow in their footsteps. Because great personalities have already set some examples, standard examples, ideal examples. So Prahlad Maharaj is one of that example, ideal example, because he was a great king and he was also a great devotee. So what was he absorbed in as a devotee? He was simply glorifying the victorious activities and pastimes of the Lord. That is what we are also supposed to do, doing our regular household duties. So Virya means very heroic, and Krishna's activities are very heroic. You can read about them in one book known as Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God. Very nicely, Krishna's heroic activities are described. Very wonderful, very, very wonderful pastimes are described. So generally, we want to see some thriller movies and some very wonderful movies wherein hero is very, very adventurous and very heroic, exhibiting his prowess. Whereas in Krishna book, you see, every pastime of Krishna is so wonderful, so heroic. It's very thrilling. So we absorb our mind in the activities of Krishna like this, then definitely that is the way we are supposed to be coming out of this existence, material world, cycle of birth and death. Right? This is what we are supposed to be doing. So Krishna's name, his fame, his activities, his associates, and all other things related to him are heroic. Heroic means it's very exceptional, very superhuman. And just like in the movies you see what is made nowadays. Hero means he can fight with 100 people, or he can do something very supernatural. Right? Whereas Krishna, Supreme Lord, he is that personality who is all powerful. He is omnipotent, he is called. And all his activities, his way of performing different various wonderful pastimes, his fame, everything about Krishna is very heroic, very wonderful. So Prahlad Maharaj says in this connection, I am certain that wherever I go, I can glorify your heroic activities and be safe. There is no question of my falling down. But I am simply anxious for these persons who have created a type of civilization in which they are always busy working hard. I am thinking of them. This is the compassion of a devotee. Our topic is the saintly compassion of a Vaishnava, a devotee's compassion. Now, devotee, even though personally speaking, he has no problem. When I will take example of Prabhupada. Prabhupada would have been very happy being in Vrindavan, doing his bhajana, chanting, reading Bhagavata. But why did he take the risk of going to the Western countries at the age of 70 years? At the age wherein people would like to relax, retire, and spend their time nicely. Prabhupada at that age, he went to America, traveling all alone, suffering 2 heart attacks on the way. Why did he take this risk? Because the compassion of a saint, a sadhu, is that they are worried about others' liberation. As we discussed in the previous session, a sadhu, a Vaishnava, is always worried about the suffering of other people. Just like Parikshit Maharaj expressed his compassion, his concern that I am worried about those people who are suffering in the hell. So sadhu's compassion is very genuine compassion because he can't see others suffering. One quality of a Vaishnava is para dukkha dukhi. He sees others suffering. He cannot tolerate that. He wants to somehow relieve them from suffering. Whereas the material conception of life is, we see somebody who is suffering, you are not bothered. Or rather, if you see, oh, my enemy is suffering, very happy. Let him suffer and die. Or you see somebody who is very happy, materially or whatever situation, then we are a little concerned. Oh, he became so happy. How he can become so happy? Should have been suffering, no? So it's the other way around. A devotee thinks, a sadhu thinks that other suffering is too much paining for him. Right? Whereas for an ordinary person, a materialist, or a person who has no concern for devotion, other things, for him, para dukkha sukhi or para sukha dukhi, or opposite. A devotee means para dukkha dukhi. Right? This is the point which Prabhupada is making here. This is exactly the concern which Prahlad Maharaj is expressing here. That I am very concerned about those people who are actually falsely engaging in so many illusory things. Maya sukhaya. They have become so foolish that they are engaging in such activities and getting entangled in these activities. Right? So please look at the wonderful character of a saint, a sadhu, a Vaishnava. Right? So Prahlada further says in next prayer to Narasimha, he says, Prayena deva munaya savimukti kama maunam charanti vijanena parartha nishtaha naitani haya kripanani moksha eko nanyam tvadasya sharanam brahmato nupashye. He says, my dear Lord Narasimha Deva, there are many saintly persons and sages who are interested very much in their own liberation. One more point, he's telling, there are many saintly persons who are only worried about their own liberation. It's like we see many saints living in the very remote areas like Himalayas, Badrikashram. They're all having their personal meditation. They have their gufa or a place of meditation, and they're very silently, solitarily they are doing their meditations, their bhajans. Right? There are many people like that. And all of them congregate during Kumbh Mela, 12 years once at a specific place, either in Prayag or Ujjain, like that. There are 4 places, Haridwar, like that. They all congregate once in a while. So Prabhupada explains, Munaya means saintly persons or philosophers. Prayena deva munaya savimukti kama. They are very much interested in their own liberation. They try to live in solitary places like the Himalaya mountains. They do not talk to anyone. They are always afraid of mixing with ordinary people in the city and becoming disturbed or maybe even falling down. They think, better let me save myself. There are many sants like that who are very afraid of interacting with the common public. They always want to live in a very solitary place, very isolated place, in forest or hills. They don't want to come in between people because they think these people are very materialistic. If I mix with them, I'll become contaminated, because all these materialistic people are only busy with money, with sense gratification, like that. So if you interact with them, mingle with them, then my spiritual practice will get affected. And we get example of Vishwamitra Muni. How even though he was meditating strictly in the forest, just by the dance of one society girl from heaven, Apsara, Menaka, he got distracted and his meditation broke, and finally what happened we know. So like this, the saints and sadhus are very afraid of intermingling with outside people, with materialistic people, common people, right? So in that way, Prahlad Maharaj says there are many such people, saints, who are very much concerned about their own personal spiritual welfare. So Prahlad Maharaj regrets that these great saintly persons do not come to the city where people have manufactured a civilization of very hard work all day and night. So if you start analyzing the statements of Prahlad Maharaj, he says, yes, the saints who are all living isolatedly and want to have their own spiritual life, their own spiritual progress, maybe they are all okay from their point of view, but are they doing right thing is the question. So Prahlad Maharaj is actually expressing regret. He's not happy with those saints, because who will deliver these people who are all in the cities, who are all absorbed in Maya Sukha? So yes, no, we understood about examples about Maya Sukha, and they become so foolish about their type of lifestyle. People are all running, they're having a rat race everywhere. They don't know what is the purpose of life, how to lead a proper, meaningful life, how to lead a life of spiritual perfection. Nobody knows. Who will guide them? Who will give them proper direction? Is the great concern which Prahlad Maharaj expresses. So such saints, Prahlad Maharaj says, are not very compassionate. They are not compassionate. Why? Because they don't know how to deliver the suffering souls. He says, I'm anxious for these fallen people who are unnecessarily working so hard simply for sense gratification. Right? So basically, Prahlad Maharaj is expressing his great concern about the conditioned souls, because they're all completely absorbed in such foolish activities. They don't know what is going to be their next life or future life. They're all gliding towards hell. In one more statement, Prahlad Maharaj says, right? So their future is so dark that they will be completely having a very miserable situation in their lives. So how to deliver them? See the compassion of Prahlad Maharaj. Similar compassion Prabhupada also had. He was thinking, how can we, because he got the order from his Guru Maharaj when he was very young, the age of 25 years. So for the next 45 years, Prabhupada was contemplating how to move, how to deliver, or how to give this message to all the suffering people. Right? With that mission, Prabhupada went to the Western countries. So Prabhupada says, I would have gone to any country, but because I got a free ticket to America, I came to America. So like this, Prabhupada came to Western countries and he preached about the message of Lord Krishna to those people who didn't even have any background about spiritual understanding. Look at the compassion Prabhupada had. So this compassion of pure devotees, we need to really, really appreciate. In fact, the scriptures say, the compassion of pure devotees is much more than Lord Krishna. That's why in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, those people, my devotees especially, who take this message of Bhagavad Gita to other people and spread this message, they become very dear to me. This is what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. So like this, the saintly persons have great compassion for this suffering people in the material world. What is the modern day, modern society's real picture? You can see this slide, how they're all having a rat race now, rushing and running. And if you go to metro station or bus station or train station, you see like this. Even in the airport, it has become like this now. Everybody is rushing, running for their different, tasks, different endeavors they are doing. So one nice example is given in the by Prabhupada. Even if there were some point in working that hard, such people do not know what it is. People are all running around doing so many things, working very hard. But bottom line is, all they know is having sex. Either they go to the naked dance or the naked club or this or that. You see, in the present situation, even though people are all working very hard and trying to, earn money and become rich, but bottom line enjoyment for them is side by side. You see, there's a statistics where it is said the websites or the addiction for this porn is so much increasing. The people are so much behind this because it is an inclination towards the living entity. One of the inclination is having sex. And Bhagavad says, Loke Vyavaya Amisha Madhya Seva. We have three tendencies in this material life. One is Vyavaya. Vyavaya means the tendency for having sex. Loke Vyavaya Amisha. Amisha means eating meat. Madhya Seva means intoxicants. So people are addicted to these three things. Sex, intoxication and meat eating. And this is being advertised so much rampantly everywhere. So this is what modern day society is inclined towards. So Prahlad Maharaj's compassion is towards these living entities. He says, Naitan vihaya kurbanan vimuksha eka. My Lord, I do not need salvation alone. Unless I take all these fools with me, I shall not go. Look at the statement what he's making. Saying, unless I liberate all these people, I don't want to go. I don't want liberation. Everybody is so selfish. Oh, I am liberated, okay. Everybody let them go to hell. But a devotee's compassion is let everybody get liberated. Unless everybody is liberated, I will not get liberated. I don't want liberation. Right? He refuses to go to the kingdom of God without taking all these foreign souls with him. Right? All these statements which we are discussing today, the topics, maybe like hitting many of us, because these are all facts. These are all naked truths. Now we should always understand scriptures and the statements from the scriptures in this way. Otherwise, we will be in an illusion, Maya Sukha. Right? We should know where are we standing now, where we have to move forward. If you're in illusion, whatever I'm doing is okay, then that is not proper. Right? So Prahlad Maharaj is actually the pure devotees, the saints. Why we have to have so much of respect for them, so much of honor for them, is because they have taken the big responsibility of Lord Krishna. Right? The responsibility of Krishna is to deliver all of us. But the pure devotees have taken that responsibility of Krishna of delivering all of us. That's why pure devotees are very dear to Lord Krishna. Right? And they are seeing how all of us are so much entangled in our activities, Maya Sukhaya. And we have become so foolish in our endeavors and don't know what is the purpose of life. And we're just going on in our material life. So they come to actually enlighten us, to shake us up and give us the proper understanding what I'm supposed to be doing. Guide us in a proper way. Right? This is the point. So this is a Vaishnava. Nanyam tadasya sharanam dharmato nupasya. I simply want to teach them how to surrender unto you. That's all. That is my goal. This is the quality, or this is the saintly compassion of a Vaishnava. The Vaishnava knows that as soon as one surrenders, one's path is clear. All suffering in the material world is because we have become Vimukha Chetasa, we have become averse to Krishna. As soon as the living entity surrenders to Krishna, which is actually his natural situation, then everything becomes very, very clear. Very happy situation. Naivod Vijay Paraduratya Vaitaranyas Twadviya Gayana Mahamrutam Agna Chitta. Somehow or other, let them bow down before Krishna. This is a simple method. But this is what Prabhupada said. Wherever he traveled, he simply spoke these things. You simply chant Hare Krishna, read Bhagavad Gita, offer food to Krishna. In a very simple way, Prabhupada taught all these things to all of us. Because chanting Hare Krishna means your surrender to Krishna has begun. Your service to Krishna has begun. Hearing about Krishna means you're already, your surrender to Krishna has begun. Even hearing from Prabhupada means you're hearing from a pure devotee. Your surrender to Krishna has begun. So like this, Prabhupada gave ample opportunity for all of us to move forward in our spiritual life. So all you have to do is bow down before Krishna with faith and say, my dear Lord Krishna, I was forgetful of you for so long, for so many lives. Now I have come to consciousness. Please accept me. That's all. So like this. The prayer is very simple. So many days, so many lives, I've been doing things averse to you, forgot you, forgetting you. Now I have understood what is the truth, reality. Please accept me, Krishna. If one simply learns this technique and sincerely surrenders himself to the Lord, his path is immediately open. So all our problems are solved. This is what Krishna assures in Bhagavad Gita towards the end. Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam praja. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma suchaha. Simply you have to surrender to Krishna, and everything else Krishna takes care. Because otherwise, what else you are doing? If you don't surrender to Krishna, you have to surrender to something else. You have to surrender to your mind, surrender to different arrangements of Maya energy around us. Either you surrender to Maya or surrender to Krishna. Which is better? You have to take a choice. Surrender to Krishna, Krishna says, I will give you liberation. Whereas surrender to Maya, you will be more and more entangled. Maya Sukhaya Bharam Udbhavato Vimra. You will be simply more and more entangled and continue your existence in the material. That is the point. So, very nicely, Prabhupada explains that for ultimate liberation, only hope is to surrender to Krishna. If one simply learns this technique and sincerely surrenders himself to the Lord, his path is immediately open. So this technique you have to understand. No. How do you know this technique? By following the orders of Srila Prabhupada, spiritual masters in the succession, then you can know this technique. Is always involved in making plans that way, just like the Goswamis. So we have great examples of acharyas, masters, spiritual masters, the Goswamis of Vrindavan, who have taught us this technique, how to simply surrender to Krishna. How in every activity we do in our day-to-day life, we can surrender to Krishna, right? So we have nice understanding about Goswamis. A Vaishnava is always thinking about how the fallen conditioned souls can be delivered. So this is the compassion of a Vaishnava saint, that is always worried about others' welfare. Para dukkha dukhi. About his personal welfare, he is hardly bothered. Because he knows God is going to take care of me. but I'm worried about others. How to deliver them? Because so that anxiety is taking for Krishna. That's why Krishna is so much dear to him. About the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, very nicely it is described by one of the Acharya by name Srinivasa Acharya. What was their business of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan? For all Chaitanya's direct disciples. It is nicely explained. Nana Shastra Vicharanaika Nipunau Sadharma Samsthapakau Lokanam Hitakarino Tribhuvane Manyau Sharanyakaro Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana Nandena Mattalikau Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyugau Sri Jiva Gopalakau. Nice prayer. Like this, there are series of prayers. One of the prayers. So what they are doing, what is the business of this Goswamis? It is mentioned, Nana Shastra Vicharanaika Nipuna. They were all very expert scholars. Study of different Shastras, Nana Shastra. And they were all Nipuna. They were so expertly, analyzed every scripture. And for what? For Sadharma Samsthapakas. For establishing the true religious principles. And all this they are doing for what? Not to show that I am a very big scholar and this is what I have done. I have written so many theses. I got so many doctorates. No. They have done all these things just for Lokanam Hitakarino. For the highest welfare, spiritual welfare of the entire society. Tribhuvane Manyau Sharanyakaro. For this reason, the entire world, entire universe is respecting these 6 Goswamis, and we all should take shelter of these 6 Goswamis. And these Goswamis are always Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana. They always absorb their minds in Radha Krishna lotus feet. Bhajananandena Mattaliko. Mattaliko means they have become mad after this devotion to Krishna. Such Goswamis, 6 Goswamis, let us offer our respectful obeisances. So this is the meaning of this statement. Very nicely explained here in this statement. The 6 Goswamis, namely Sri Sanatana Goswami, Rupa Goswami, Sri Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami, Sri Raghunatha Dasa Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, and Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, are very expert in scrutinizingly studying the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. They are always absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha Krishna. With similar Vaishnava compassion, Parikshit Maharaj says to Shukadeva Goswami, you have described the different types of hellish conditions of life. Now tell me how those who are suffering can be delivered. Kindly explain this to me. That this is the compassion which Parikshit Maharaj had. Like how the Acharyas, Goswamis, all great devotees have the same saintly compassion. With this, we conclude today's session with regard to the saintly compassion of Vaishnavas with examples. We have few more discussions on this subject, which will continue next week. So if anybody has anything to discuss, any comments based on today's discussions, I can take up a few questions. Okay, so if nobody has anything to ask, then we can close for today. And again, we will meet next week. Okay, so thank you, everybody.